This is how I would handle coaching kids who are not very motivated. I put them in two categories. Number one are just maybe as a high school coach, when I was a high school coach years ago, some just don't want to be there, right? Obviously. So, we need to put them in that category. Then a lot of coaches, especially young coaches who are very motivated, they want to build the empire, right? They want everybody to be, you dedicate your whole life to wrestling, or we don't want you around. And I had that issue when I was a high school coach. The guys I coached against, I guess, they were football, baseball coaches. They would tell their athletes, if you go out for wrestling, don't even come out for baseball. We're here to build something special, or whatever they said. Football team, same way. You go out for wrestling or baseball, stay there. We don't want you. And the football team was 1-29 the 3 years I was there. And I mean, I almost had fights. It was a huge school, right? I think like 3,000 kids. So the coaches' meetings would be a freaking 60-foot long room with coaches all over it. And I'm just livid. And I was like, how many of you work every day to be the state teacher of the year in the state of Texas? Nobody. Does that make you a loser? No. So your kids who don't want to dedicate their whole life to your baseball team, which barely wins half their games, is not a loser. Some kids want to do other sports. That's a category. The third category is the kids who do want to live it. And as a high school coach, you have a few of those. Most of your kids are in the middle. Let's say 10% here, 80% here, 10% that probably they need to earn their way off of the team. I never really kick kids off of the team because I think high school sports is about keeping kids active. Some of these kids don't have a great home life, especially where I was teaching, right? They need you in their life. But I mean, they can't take 2 weeks off over Christmas break, then show up 20 pounds overweight, then want to lay in the training room and then play at practice, right? I mean, you just got to say, hey, A, B, C, and D have to be met. And if you don't meet that, then this team is not for you. But you can earn your way on the team just like you earned your way off of the team. So we always said if you miss practice, you have 35 up and down the bleachers, right? They weren't that tall, but they were decently tall. I always ran them with them because I just was a workout guy back then. I was younger. Still exercise a little bit, but not like that. I was kind of into it. So it wasn't torture. But I just said, it's a fair exchange. These guys are in the practice room for two and a half hours. You had the day off, even if it was to take a test or to do something at home, that's fine. Now, if they were injured and at practice, I didn't make them make up the practice. But, it's just a way to, and I just said, I can't put you on the mat out of shape and risk you getting injured. So I kind of like jokingly made it like I was caring about them so much that it was about their personal safety. They would laugh, we had a good relationship. But they thought it was fair, right? Because if you miss, you have to make up the work. That's how life works. And if you take a day off of work, then instead of having that much work on your desk, you have that much. If you're build decks and you take a day off, well, you're a day behind in building that deck, right? So you got to make up. You either got to go work that next Saturday, or you got to work double time or work 10, 12-hour days to get caught up. So that was my approach as far as earning your way off the team and earning your way on the team. And that comes just to being a little bit organized and having a few, a few parameters set and boundaries. But that 80% in the middle, that's how you're going to win your state titles as a high school coach, no matter what your sport. You can't require every one of those kids to dedicate their whole life to your sport, and they're not losers and bums because they only want to wrestle 4 months a year. Maybe they legitimately want to play college baseball, right? They just, when I was at Oklahoma State, we had athletes on the team, some good ones too, and they were like, Oklahoma State champions and medalists. Most of them were in-staters. There was a few out-of-staters too that came, and then their degree field was brutal architecture, right? They're an architect, and it's just like these projects were off the charts, and they're like, Coach, I just can't do it. but I don't want to quit. I want to be on the team. And our coaches were very cool, and they're like, great, be a member of the team. You know, you give them your class schedule every semester. Let us know when you're going to be here, and you be there. On a rare occasion, if you have to miss a practice, let us know. We just don't want you showing up once every 2 weeks when you feel like getting a workout in. You have to be on a schedule. But yeah, you know, if you can hit some open meets, fine. Otherwise, you just can be a part of the team. You're a workout partner. You can hang out with the guys on the weekend. But I understand that, you know, your degree field does not allow you to be a college athlete. And they were cool. And so for me as a high school coach, I took that same approach. I was like, yeah, that's great. I would love to have you on our team. I understand that track is your main sport. You go to Fort Worth on the weekends for your coaching on Sundays. But, you know, you want to be on the wrestling team. It's exciting. And, you know, it's my goal to help you to become a state medalist, maybe even more. I knew that was difficult because the time they put in. You should adjust your goals according to the amount of time you put in, right? And I want to reemphasize, those kids are not losers because they don't live their whole life around wrestling. Because you as a high school coach, you probably aren't chasing that National Teacher of the Year award. You probably never gave it one thought. You probably just said, I want to teach so I can coach, right? Which is fine. I did that too, right? I ended up loving teaching though, which was kind of, you probably fell in love with it also. But I think that we need those athletes. So as a coach, I would take this column of kids and say, my practices were engineered towards state medalists, right? And helping those kids. These upper tier kids, this foundation, I called it, was important for them too, because 90% of your points comes from 10% of the wrestling. So the drill plan was still teaching to the upper third of the group philosophy. Now that upper group, as my assistants got to drilling these kids, I could pull these kids to the side twice a week. I could have maybe auxiliary drill plans for them that were individualized. I had 6 kids who are super into wrestling. Then I could say, hey, you really need to start scoring from the outside more. You're just a freak athlete. So I'd have this little drill plan. So, you know, I would allow them to go to the corner under my supervision or the assistant coach's supervision or under their own accord, and they could drill their individual plan twice a week. And so now we have what? You know, the kids who are earning their way off the team or back on, those are transitional. You know, 90% of them won't ever come back, but that 10% might fall into here. And, you know, if they've been wrestling since 7th grade, they might get sparked. I've seen kids my whole life get sparked with wrestling when they're on a team finally for once, right? So we don't want to run those kids off, but we can't allow them to drag the whole program down because they will. So now this core 80% of the kids are really working, and then I can suck, 30% of them? Now that they're having success and they know that I care about them and I want them around and I don't look down on them because they don't want to wrestle 5 days a week year-round for their whole life and play on flow wrestling all day and study wrestling, right? They don't want to. That's fine. They knew that I still respected them. They're going to come to off-season practices. Not everyone, but they're going to be there once a week. They're going to work because they want to be around you as a coach, and they want, and a good chance that the other sport, their main sport, maybe they don't get the respect, right? So I think that as a coach, when they like you, they're going to want to be around you. They're going to buy from you, right? They're going to enjoy being a part of your program. And it's okay to have this little program over here that you've worked in, and these kids don't take offense. They know that, hey, these are the hardcore kids, right? And some of these might move up there, some of these might move over here. Probably half of these will stay there. They're just going to pull a Houdini on you and they'll disappear 8 months, but you still talk to them in the hallways. Stay in touch with them, because these kids, when they're 18 years old, they're going to win state medals for you, right? Winning a state medal is about just experience a lot of times, and it's just, if you can keep them involved, they're going to win a state medal just because they're 18-year-old men, right? So as far as building a team, that would be my advice on handling the maybe the unmotivated athletes, the medium motivated athletes, because they're not unmotivated. Just like you're not a loser because you don't want to be teacher of the year. You're like, I'm dumping my time into coaching, and I'm dumping my time. I've got two daughters at home who are 8 months, an 8-month-old and a 2-year-old that I hardly see 2 months a year, 3 months a year. I focus on them. I'm an awesome teacher. I'm not a loser. I just don't give a crap about being teacher of the year, right? You don't care, but you're still an amazing teacher. Well, those kids are still amazing athletes and they're productive members of your team, just like the college students at Oklahoma State were a productive member of our team. They had to dump their time somewhere else. So I think if you take some of this advice, I think you're going to really start to see your program develop. And once you can have the categories of athletes, you're probably going to understand that, number one, the kids who are just weekend warrior type athletes, they're the ones that you need. You might have a state champ and 2 state medalists out of this column, but you need 5 state medalists and 8 state qualifiers to win a state title. These kids that you're running off potentially, you're screwing yourself. And they're good kids. I mean, they might play baseball on TV one day, and they might give you tickets to watch a World Series. Just because you might dump your time into wrestling, but you might also be a football coach. But you're probably not. You probably could give a crap less if you're the team's nationally ranked in football, because you're dumping your time into wrestling. These kids are no different than you. So there's my thoughts on that. And as far as program development, I've seen it my whole life. I engaged in it and I did it, and we had a good success. And that's still the approach I take with our academy, right? We have our beginners, our academy, then we have our elite program, then we have our world-class wrestler program, and it's a 4-step process. You can work your way up or you can choose not to. We love to have you either way, and we're going to help you along that path that you choose. So good luck to everybody out there, and Merry Christmas.